Coming up on Omitted.
Like, if I can give an example, I'm very proud of my Instagram page, okay? Like, it's very, I would say it's very aesthetic.
Hello, and welcome back to the next episode of Omitted. Omitted is the Classics Premier College Admissions podcast, where we sit down with Townsend Harris seniors and talk about the college application process. In this episode, you'll get an inside look at how these two seniors are committing to Cornell University and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, more known as MIT. This is Season 5, Episode 8, and enjoy. And welcome to the next episode of Admitted. Today we're joined by
Shamonti, Shamim,
Aima, Hossen,
and a bit about the college you're committing to, the field of study you plan to do, and how did you apply to your colleges?
Okay, I'll go first. So I'm going to commit to Cornell University, and I'm majoring in cognitive science. I'm still trying to explore this. I'm just going to use my first year to explore. And what was the third question? How do I apply?
How did you apply?
I applied through the Questbridge College National Match Program.
I'll be going to MIT, and I'm going to be studying artificial intelligence and decision making, and I applied through regular decision.
I think we should hop into the first essay.
So this is the Questbridge personal essay. It says, "We are interested in learning more about the context in which you have grown up, formed your aspirations, and accomplished your successes. Please describe how the most influential factors and challenges in your life have shaped you into the person you are today." Tuita order koro, my mother would yell after I'd found something I wanted for myself. Order 2. It didn't matter who wanted what, the only requirement was to purchase 2 of everything. Growing up, every part of my life revolved around pairs. As a fraternal twin, being grouped together was painfully inevitable. With our names being alphabetically ordered one after another, we were never separated from each other in class, allowing us to experience 13 years side by side. For some, being tethered together for years may seem exhausting and repetitive, but for me, it served as the foundation of my identity. The familiar face that accompanied my own fueled an intricate social life. Known as the twins, I naturally drew people's eyes and whispers in my direction. Raised through such practices, they served as my norm, and I embraced this constant, ultimately accepting it as fate. Before entering my freshman year of high school, however, I reluctantly faced the idea of a new life. Sitting on the couch, we opened the portal to our decision letters for the 8 specialized high schools in New York. We regret to inform you that you have not been given a seat. I glanced over to where my sister was sitting, disappointment constricting my throat as I attempted to blink away the tears flooding my eyes. My sister's words cut through the clutter, fogging my brain. "I got in," she exclaims, crinkling her eyes in excitement. Being admitted into different high schools was an unexpected turn for both myself and my parents, who strived to keep us together since kindergarten. Without my sister as a source of common ground in the midst of unfamiliarity, I kept my head low as I navigated through the new world unfolding before me. Exposed. Being known as Shamonti felt unusual and even uncomfortable. It never appeared as a formidable obstacle to my social life, yet now it became my greatest burden. Notun kichu chestukoro, my mother would tell me before I left for school, try something new. It was the simplest advice, yet it was much easier said than done. Nonetheless, my efforts to reinvent myself into an individual would drive me forward. Although reluctant, I tried to express myself in a way I hadn't before. While not my strong suit, I stepped into the art department of a student-led production that created the backdrop and props for our annual show. Surprisingly, I truly enjoyed the art of creation. Distinct and intricate, the artistic vision I created invited others to understand the way I see the world. It opened my eyes to see how different all of our lives are, even if you're sharing a piece of it with someone else. "That may be one of the best skull paintings I've ever seen," the director commenting, a shadow darkening my view. I looked up to meet the warm eyes that smiled down at me. "Thank you," I responded. This simple praise not only sparked my determination to improve, but also captured the attention of other members as they acknowledged my etched artwork. Many praised its style, while others asked for guidance in achieving a similar level of realism. Flattered by the newfound recognition, I quickly shuffled to my feet and began sharing my techniques, helping others achieve their potential. For the first time, I was viewed for the skills I possessed individually, rather than the striking face that stood beside me. However, this experience not only allowed me to embrace a leadership approach, but it urged me to understand and help others beyond my sister. I started to consider others' opinions as I would back home, appreciating the shared understanding that normally lied between my twin and I. After that day, I continued to express myself with others, connecting through our creative minds. Different mediums, colors, and techniques were sprawled across the ground as a small group formed around me. As weaving threads of conversations and interactions continued among us, greater personal connection was found between radiant smiles and exchanged laughs. As the next year rolled around, I was appointed as the new art department director, leading a fresh team of artists who were eager to find themselves through a series of creative experiments. With the buckets of paint lined up and paintbrushes laying beside them, I imagined my sister's voice booming through the room as I stand next to her like a pawn. However, the exciting truth seeped in. It was my time to lead. An edge of confidence slipped into my voice as I held the paintbrush next to me, waving it into the air. "Who's ready to paint? Get your paintbrushes." Hearing the collective shuffling, I smiled to myself. At last, I was able to have something of my own.
That was very good.
Thank you.
I really liked how, similar to like others, it was like the past and then high school and then reflection. I really liked how you incorporate your own family and your personal life and also into high school and how that affected it. And I really liked the part where it was like the high school decisions. And the line that stood out to me was, "Now it's my time to lead." I really felt that. How did you come up with that line?
Well, like, I knew, like, my essay was going to be about, like, me being a twin, because not a lot of people know that. And also, like, I wanted to compare it to, like, when I was younger, I feel like I was really attached to the hip to my sister. Like, at one point, like, we had separation anxiety. Like, we couldn't even be separated from the same classroom. But keep in mind, that was kindergarten. That's not me now. But, like, when I was in kindergarten, we couldn't even be separated into separate classrooms because I would cry for my mom, or, like, I would mostly cry for my sister, which is kind of embarrassing. But now, like, when I went to a new high school, like, everything changed. Like, I mean, one, it's not socially acceptable to, like, cry, you know, I'm at my grown age. But, yeah, like, I never thought of myself as a leader because, like, I would always go along with whatever my sister said. Like, oh, if my sister wanted to do this extracurricular, I would just go along with it. But then when I came here, like, I feel like my sister really liked art, and I didn't really like art that much. I just, like, learned from her. But when I came here, I kind of realized, like, I actually do like art because I joined the Sing art department, and then I wasn't expecting to become director. I just applied because I don't think there was an application. Or was, I think you had to, like, if you were interested, you just, like, signed up. So I signed up, even though I, like, really didn't think I would have much, like it wouldn't really happen or nothing would come out of it. But I, like, took that chance, and I feel like that chance was, like, my, like, that line. It kind of represent my line, like, oh, it's my time, it's, you know? Because, like, I just took that jump forward, and I actually decided to do things that I wanted to do, not for the sake of, like, oh, she wants to do it, so I should do it. So, yeah, that's kind of how I came up with it. Okay.
And I think building on what you said about art and Sing, why did you choose to incorporate Sing as like an extracurricular in your personal statement compared to your other activities?
I actually, like, I had to write, like, a lot of drafts, but I included, like, art specifically because that was, like, the first leadership role I got here at Townsend, and I feel like it meant a lot to me because, like, one, like, it wasn't something that was, like, none of the directors knew me, like, to the extent, like, you know how people might give it because, like, they're friends? None of them knew me to that extent, so it felt like I actually deserved it. It wasn't like, oh, like, connections. And also, like, I truly love art. Like, I do art all the time. And, like, to be able to lead something that I truly have, like, passion for, and it wasn't just handed down to me, it just meant a lot to me. And I just really wanted to highlight that in my essay.
So the Common Up essay for the personal statement, it was a limit of 800 words. Whereas compared to Common Up, I think it was 650. 650. Yeah. How did those two essays compare, and how did you use that extra word limit?
So I feel like my Common Up essay, it wasn't really that detailed. Like, I didn't go into, like, the specifics about, like, my sister getting into a specialized high school, and I didn't actually, that was my original draft didn't have that. And also, like, the parts after about, like, when with all the people in art, like the art department, and I was like saying, oh, like let's get our brushes and like stuff like that. I didn't actually write about that in my original essay. I actually first formatted it into a Common App essay, and then later I did a QuestBridge essay. And like the way the word limit affected me was I had to like explain a lot more, because I feel like my essay was lacking a lot of depth, and I was really just jumping to a lot of the like events that I wanted to get to. So like in the Common App essay, I feel like that really restricted me. So I was really like happy that like QuestBridge gave me a lot more words. So like I was able to kind of talk about like my initial disappointment that I felt and like how I kind of moved past that. Because at first I didn't talk about the specialist high school. I just said, oh, we're attending different high schools. I thought it would be a little more impactful. Maybe not even that, like maybe it's more relatable for people like to read, not the admissions counselor, but like anyone reading, like if they didn't get into a specialized high school, because I know a lot of people at Townsend didn't get into specialized high schools. So I just thought it was like something cool that I can include. And then the ending, I felt like I just needed to explain more about my present self, because I feel like my original essay, I was really just jumping to it. I was like, oh yeah, now I'm art director and I've had a lot of fun and like things like that. So I just wanted to explain like, oh, like what I'm actually doing here. Like I'm bringing people together. It's like something I'd never done in the past, and like being able to have that leadership role allowed me to do that.
And I definitely agree with the high school decisions. I think adding that extra details made it a lot more impactful. Okay, I think moving on to personal why us, or like
Why us? Really, why this field of study, and a couple of the other MIT supplements, because MIT actually doesn't accept the Common App or a long personal statement. My first supplement was tell us more about why this field of study at MIT appeals to you, and at the time it was computer science. So let's get started. The word count was 100. I've always loved Dora the Explorer. Growing up, I'd follow Dora on new adventures, waiting for her next questions to answer. Solving her challenges gave me the first taste of problem solving and sparked my initial passion for CS and educational technology. To raise a generation of thinkers, I'll need the hands-on, community-driven environment of MIT. Particularly, research programs like UROP and organizations like Thrive at EECS, Electrical, Engineering, and Computer Science, will allow me to collaborate interdisciplinarily so I can ask impactful questions just like Dora had. At MIT, by innovating revolutionary educational tools, I hope to leave the world better than I found it. So that was the first one. And then for the second one, we know you lead a busy life full of activities, many of which are required of you. Tell us about something you do simply for the pleasure of it, and the word count was 150. So much emotion can be captured in one frame. Graduations, festivals, protests, I've taken pictures for all. But most of the time, these pictures don't end up the way I want them. They can be blurred or cast by shadows, overexposed and noisy. So when I'm not behind the camera, I spend my time color grading photography. Ultimately, when I color grade, I want to appeal to all the senses. By working with others to refine their photos, ensuring they tell a unique story, I hope that their emotions are reflected in my work. The real reward is the genuine gratitude I get for bringing a photo to life. While I may not be a professional photographer, one day my photos could be used to look back on history. It'll be my way of taking the hand of an audience and showing them how the world is seen through my eyes. And then number 4, which is the disclaimer one, the question was, MIT brings people with diverse backgrounds together to collaborate, from tackling the world's biggest challenges to lending a helping hand. Describe one way you have collaborated with others to learn from them, with them, or contribute to your community together. And the word count was 225. I am not a Jew. In fact, according to society, I reside on the opposite end of the spectrum, a believer of Islam. When the Israel-Palestine conflict began, my world started turning backwards. Tensions on the battleground brought itself within classrooms, and my relationship with Jewish friends faltered. No longer did we rush to embrace each other in the halls. There was an obvious hesitation that couldn't be ignored. We were afraid. How are we to speak up without knowing the consequences of our perspectives? I couldn't stand the separation and silence. I wanted to find a way to bring our communities together during a time where we couldn't be farther apart. I wouldn't accept that a 1,000-year-old war could dictate our values and the meaning of our friendships. Through the effort of both Muslims and Jews at my school, we started a podcast titled Islamic Fact vs. Islamic Fiction, along with a blog called Voices Without Borders, allowing students to speak about their opinions on the war. Our goal was to prevent ignorance, stopping the spread of hate crimes, stereotypes, and misinformation. We took it upon ourselves to advance our school beyond closed-mindedness, where every individual is respected and cared for. Our impact globally is small, but we have a duty to argue for the progress of humanity, and we shall do so by example. And then finally, for number 5, how did you manage a situation or challenge you didn't expect? What did you learn from it? And that was also 225. June 2, 2024, 10:45 a.m. My dad had gone to Bangladesh for the first time in 9 years. I thought I'd prepared myself for the moment I'd wave him off behind the ticketing booth, but an overwhelming sense of guilt caught me by surprise. Coming home from the airport, I marked the date on my calendar in Reading. It was done after the fact, but that didn't matter to me. I wish I'd shown a bit more affection, maybe a hug goodbye. You see, in my family, physical touch is practically non-existent. It's funny because when it comes to family, what should be easier becomes a near impossible task. But facing the event in which one of us was no longer a door away, I realized we weren't as tough as we seemed. Each of us were emotional too, but without the courage to act upon feeling. Even so, it's not as if we're apathetic towards one another. There are many ways in which we show our love, and the absence of touch doesn't negate it. I want to show others that for me, this is what family is. It's my own. What matters to me is that I get my feelings across, and when my dad turned back to smile and wave his ticket in the air, I knew I did just that. That was a lot, so you can ask.
That was a lot. Let's talk about the first one, and then we'll go down in order. What was the first one?
The first one was about Dora the Explorer, yes. And how it made me want to go into CS because of the problem solving and questioning aspect.
And what you mentioned you first were, when you were writing, you were doing computer science. What's your major?
Now my major is artificial intelligence, which is technically the same with computer science, but it has more of a, I guess, psychology aspect and more data science aspect compared to strict computer science alone.
I guess, why did you choose to incorporate Dora as like your hook into the essay?
Yeah, well, one of the things I noticed with the MIT supplements is that most of them are very short, and you want to be able to get the attention of whoever's reading your supplements without being too vague or being too direct. So initially, whenever I was writing all of my supplements, I was wondering, okay, what's the best way I can grab their attention? And usually it's with something funny. And I was thinking back to my childhood, and I was like, okay, Dora the Explorer was a cartoon I watched so much as a child, and it was one of my favorites. And I remembered there was so much talking with, like, Dora saying, oh, like, can you look for this? Can you look for that? And there's a lot of parallels between that and computer science, because when you're looking at CS, you're always trying to figure out what is the best way I can solve this problem, and how can I optimize and figure out what do I have already in my situation, and how can I build upon that? And Dora already has a lot of that in its show. And then a lot of the other programs that I mentioned in my sup, there was Europe, and then there was Thrive. Europe is a program at MIT for research, and then Thrive is a program for underrepresented students at MIT. And I noticed that when I was preparing for this supplement specifically, there were many people who were dropping the specifics of MIT along with the field of study itself, because if you look at the prompt, it's not just a why MIT, but it's also a why this major. So that's really why I was incorporating both that funny aspect while also trying to make sure I answer both parts of the prompt.
And how did you balance storytelling and grabbing the reader's hook, grabbing the reader's attention, versus just going straight to the point of answering the question, why MIT or the major? How did you balance storytelling versus being like serious and answering the question?
So I think there's, if I remember correctly, there was 2 ways that I usually categorize writing supplements. There was one where it's a narrative, and there's one where it's kind of like a flip book of sorts. So if you're looking at a narrative, you're basically weaving in this one metaphor, this one story throughout your entire essay. And you want to make sure that there's little parts of it that you're dropping like breadcrumbs throughout. And that's what I really did for the Dora the Explorer idea, where I talk about problem solving and then I connect it later on with like, oh, I ask impactful questions just like Dora had. That's kind of what you want to do for the narrative approach. But when you're looking at a more flip book approach, you're trying to mention multiple stories back to back inside of your story. And that's a more, I would say, difficult approach because you're trying to incorporate so many ideas into one essay, so it might become overwhelming. But that's usually how I maintain the balance, by trying to focus on one of those templates.
We got to the second essay. What was that?
The second one was about photography.
Yes. Okay. I'm in photography. I could say some stuff. What stood out to me was you said you might not be able to always capture the exact moment, but you tried to color grade and redefine the moment.
Color grade and like edit the photo to make it into what I wanted that moment to be in my heart.
Yeah, and also like you also mentioned being able to like capture it and like give it to people. How do you think photography played into the rest of your application? Because I think photography and like computer science it's a bit of a difference. How did you balance that? And why did you choose to do photography as your topic?
I think the very fact that it's so different is the part of the balance, because when you're applying to these colleges, you don't want to have this whole application that's specifically talking about, oh, I love computer science, oh, I love math. That's gonna put you out as kind of a nerd. But like, I would say that I chose photography personally because it's something that whenever, like, if I can give an example, I'm very proud of my Instagram page, okay? Like, I would say it's very aesthetic in my opinion, and I really like vie for that idea of like capturing the perfect like framing and making sure that everything looks the way that I want it to look. And there's this idea of how like I feel like there's a lot of childhood aspect in my application, especially with the Dora idea, and I feel that a lot of people have this saying where when you're a kid everything looks more vibrant, and then when you grow up it doesn't look like that anymore. And I feel like being able to do photography, but specifically the color grading aspect, because a lot of people do say that they love photography, but you want to be more nuanced whenever you're writing about it so you can show yourself as different. Because I could have said only, oh, I like to take pictures. But instead of saying that, I said, oh, I like color grading pictures, which isn't something you see very often. And I think that gave me a lot more uniqueness inside of my application, and it made me seem more three-dimensional rather than two-dimensional CS lover.
And do you think, what is your opinion on being like well-rounded in your application versus being like super spiked in like one area? How did you balance being able to show your major and your passion for a certain thing versus being able to show who you are as a whole?
So this is quite a debate, because I have some people who are my friends that really favor the spiked application, and some people who are the well-rounded. And I would say I'm more of a well-rounded applicant, but it really depends on what you're trying to, which parts you want to spike and which parts you want to balance. So I would say that in my application, I balanced out the supplements, because I don't really talk about CS that often inside of my supplements, because I feel like that portion is, aside from the first prompt when they ask about why that field of study I want to participate in, everything else they want to know about you. They don't want to know about what you want to do in the future. They're just trying to figure out if you're a good fit for their campus. So if they're not specifically asking you for trying to talk about why you love this specific field of study, I think you should be well-rounded and talk about all those different aspects of yourself that make you who you are. And you can always spike yourself in your extracurriculars or in your awards. I feel like awards is a really good area to put that, because you want to show that you're capable. But for extracurriculars, I also do think that you want to have a balance, because it also shows that you're not just always focusing on this one thing, that you have a diverse number of values and perspectives.
And what is your opinion, Shamonti, that question?
Like for me, I think I mostly like talked about my extracurriculars, but like I also like talked about like my own passion for art. Like I feel like you should have like a balance between the two, because if you kind of just talk about like one thing, it might bore the admissions counselor, but also it might just show like you can read a, like it just shows like you know textbook knowledge about your major, but you don't actually know like what you want or like what you're interested in, because like you can just go on the website and find out like, oh, like this major offers this for like this college, but you can't really like, if you can actually like go and talk about your like the major, why you're fit for it and why you should be at the college, like things like that, like you really have to talk about yourself in these questions, because like it is not only important to like say like, oh, I'm gonna major in this, but it's also important to say like I also like show yourself, because like they don't know how you look like, they only know maybe like your age and your name, right? So you just really want to show yourself through like the way you write. Yeah.
And a follow-up to that, how did you guys balance being able to show who you are for but not coming off as like showing off or being pretentious in your application?
Well, when you do your application, specifically your supplementals, you already are submitting, at least through Common App, the resume, right?
Yeah.
So never list out in any of your paragraphs all of your extracurriculars. Don't be like, oh, I did photography and then I did a little bit of like science Olympiad, you know, it was nothing much, you know? Like you don't want to do that, because that just repeats what there's already a section dedicated to. So your question was like about balancing that aspect, and I feel like a lot of people make that mistake of trying to dump their entire high school career on there, but really that's just room to make yourself an even more appealing applicant by being yourself, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, like if you even do QuestBridge, they also ask you for a resume. So like I didn't really talk about any of, like I did a lot of more like extracurriculars that I would have loved to talk about, but like it really depends on like if you can tie it back to yourself. So like one of my extracurriculars that I did want to talk about, I talked about it in my Common App essay, but I didn't end up using it. So I did like this internship and I really wanted to talk about it, but I really was just thinking about like, does this internship really reflect what I want to talk about? Like, yeah, it reflects like I can do work, I can get paid, you know, it doesn't really show anything about like who I am, right? Because it's not just me who had this internship, that like a lot of other people had this internship, so like maybe other people are writing about it, right? So it's nothing like unique. And like I'm not saying like being in Sing is unique or anything, but I feel like the way that I approached the topic was unique. Like I didn't just say like, oh, I'm in Sing now, love Sing, love directing it. Like I didn't say that. Like I said like, oh, you know, like I'm not used to like directing these sort of things, but I still like took the challenge even though I'm not really like used to it, and like things like that. So I think if you tie it in about yourself, you'll be able to make like a more unique, you know, writing piece.
Okay, moving to the third essay.
That one was the controversial one.
Okay.
Yes.
I think, because I don't think a lot of people would dare to write about that conflict. And I liked how you tied it into the present. It captured I think it would capture the admissions officer's thing, and I don't think a lot of students would dare to write about it. And I liked how you tied it into the podcast. How did you initially decide to go with that idea, and how did you start writing that essay?
Okay. So let me take you 2 days before this whole supplement was due. I was talking to my sister, and I was trying to figure out what should I write about this, because initially I think it was about like recycling and climate change, and I was like, low-key, that's really basic, and it's not something that I'm really, really passionate about. So I was like asking my sister, what can I talk about that I really do love, and it's something I'm very passionate about. And immediately the first thing that came to mind for me was the Israel and Palestine war, but I was like, get that thought away from me, I can't write about that, I'm getting rescinded from everything. But then I was looking at the MIT website, and I was doing that throughout the entirety of my application, trying to figure out how can I make sure I paint myself to be a student that they see at their campus. And what I noticed is that the word bold came up a lot throughout the entire website. They don't want people who are scared to voice their opinions. Like, for me, my worst fear isn't losing my ability to thrive academically or be able to just achieve the highest level of education. It's losing my humanity. And I don't want to be able to go into a college and have to fake being a person of myself that isn't true just to appease others. And I realized that if I wrote about that experience, if I wrote how I brought a community together, by the way, that podcast and that blog was for the Muslim Interscholastic Tournament. If I wrote about that experience, I'd be able to show them that not only am I bringing some sort of unique component to their campus, because when I went there actually to visit, there were barely any Muslim people to begin with. I'm also making sure that I'm bringing people together, because that's one of the biggest aspects that MIT really loves. It's collaboration and being able to be bold. And I think that this essay really encompassed that.
And when did you write it in like the timeline of your application?
Oh, the very last second, right before midnight.
I did too.
And how do you think that affected the essay?
So I think definitely the risk of writing it very last second is probably why I submitted it in the first place, because I was like thinking about it, like, do I submit recycling or do I submit war? And that balance was like really like, it was tweaking me out. And I was asking so many of my friends, which one should I choose? And most of them, when they read it, they were telling me, choose the war one, because it reflected me a lot more. And to be honest, I feel like it might have been the reason I got accepted, because as you said, no one would dare to write something like that. And I don't think anyone dared to write something like that. And I think being able to do that last minute, I mean, they do say diamonds come from a lot of pressure. And
Why do you say that?
I think definitely it did help.
And during like the final stages of the essays, did you like ask other people for like editing advice or like advice on essay, and like did you ask teachers, and how'd you add that feedback into your essays?
Okay, so thankfully, and I'm going to name drop if you're watching this, I had a friend named Jing who got into MIT through Questbridge, thankfully, and she's my goat. She helped me a lot with editing the essays and being able to figure out if it suited MIT. And I think usually whenever I got people to review my essays, I just shared the link of the doc and they would edit it by adding comments and things like that. But most of the time, I would ask questions like, does this show who I am, or am I trying to pretend being someone that I'm not? And usually, if you're asking the right people, they're going to tell you the honest answer. You don't want to ask people that want you to be someone you're not in front of college applications, because you truly want to be your honest self, and that's the best way you can get in. So I feel like those are two questions you usually want to ask people who are reviewing your essays.
And what would you say, Shamonti?
So I got help from, I used to work at Mount Sinai, and I got help from, there was this program that they invited me to, and it's this program where you can get help for your college essays from people at the ICANN School of Medicine who are already med students and who applied to college before they went to med school there. So I had I don't remember her name, and I feel really bad. There's nothing about it. It's just because she helped me once or twice. So I don't really remember her name because there was a lot of people who looked at my essay. But I'll find her name later. But she helped me a lot, because when she looked at my essay, I was humbled. I was greatly humbled. It was I was just about to submit it. I sent it to her maybe a week before, and the amount of comments she left, my heart dropped. It was so bad. I was this is so many comments. I was is my essay really that bad? And then I texted her, and I was so what are these comments about? Because I'm I thought this essay was perfect. And she was I feel what helped is that she didn't know who I was, right? So I asked a lot of my friends to read it, but I feel they knew me, they knew who I was, they knew what I did, but she doesn't know who I am, what I've done. So when she read it, she was this part doesn't make sense. What do you mean here? Can you elaborate there? I don't know what you're talking about. And I was maybe I should fill in the gaps. So that's why specifically was telling me about like the different high schools part and maybe to elaborate on that, and that's why I added that part about like being rejected. And then she also told me to elaborate more on the present, because I actually didn't elaborate on the present, because at first I was just like, oh, you know, I got it, like I'm a director, I love it, you know, I help people, and that was it. And then she was like, you're focusing too much on the past and not enough on the present. I was like, okay, I should start, you know, changing my essay. So then after I got humbled, I started working on my essay a lot more, and I didn't give it back to her after that, because then she'd make me change a lot more. But I did like take the advice to heart, and I really did like check with other people that were not her. But I'm really thankful for her, because I feel like without her I would not have gotten in, because her advice was really good. But also I just want to let everyone know that you do not have to take every piece of advice you get, because like I've had a lot of teachers look over my work, you know who you are, but I didn't take some of their advice, because I was like, I don't know what they're saying, and I don't like what they're saying, right? Like, it's not like, sometimes it's not even about clarity. Sometimes they really want to change, like, the way you're writing. And I feel like that's when I kind of cut the line, because, like, I know how I write, and I enjoy how I write, and I like it. And, like, if a teacher's trying to change that, even if they're the smartest teacher here, or, like, the smartest teacher you know, you don't have to take it. It's free will. I don't take it if I don't want to. I take whatever I think will actually help my essay and isn't changing, like, the way I write. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like naturally we all write in a way that's so unique to us. I mean, I have certain phrases that I throw here and there in my essays that sound like what I would say in real life, or like I talk the same way that I write. And I feel like that shows my voice, and I don't think a lot of the times when you show teachers or friends your essays, they try to like grammar check you or tell you like, oh, this is not how you're supposed to write this. But really, sometimes it's not really grammatically like incorrect, but it's just the way you write specifically, and someone shouldn't dictate that.
Yeah, like in mine, I had like my mom was speaking in it, and she spoke in like my language, and like a teacher that I asked, they told me that I should get rid of it, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like that was unique. That's I feel like it's not like in my family. What I do is my mom speaks in like her mother tongue, and I respond in English. Very weird, but I think a lot of people might do that. I don't know.
That's what.
Yeah, right. I it's not like I can't speak the language. I can, but that just reflects who I am, right? And I feel like if I changed it so that she would be speaking in English, it just like doesn't make sense, and it doesn't reflect who she is. And I feel like I would be kind of uncomfortable submitting that essay, thinking like, because that's not my mom, you know. My mom is not speaking to me in English. Maybe she'll throw in an English word, but she speaks in her mother tongue, and I should like, you know. And even if it took up more word count to even write like what, because if you speak in like my language is Bangla, like if you speak in that, the way like if you're saying the same phrase, it takes like more time to say the same phrase, right? But I was willing to sacrifice the word count just to use the language, and I think like that. Like goes back to the point, like you don't have to use every advice that teachers give you, because I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm just saying that sometimes like even if teachers give you advice, you know like what's best for your essay. Yeah.
Fourth essay. This was Shamonti's question. Why did you choose this topic of answering a question of what was unexpected?
Unexpected.
Unexpected. Why'd you choose this topic?
Okay, well, the thing is, most people would choose an actual, well, not to say that this isn't an actual challenge or situation, but most people would choose something like, oh, I tore my ACL, and I did this, and, you know, like this is what happened to me. But I wanted to choose something that wasn't cliche, and also something that wasn't false, because to be perfectly honest, I couldn't really think of any challenge that I'd be willing to share with admissions officers, for one, and is something that I didn't expect that I could like willingly write about. So I was thinking, okay, so what's a challenge that's not physical or academic of sorts, but something that still very much resonates with me? And for me, that idea was that in my family, physical touch is non-existent. Like people don't really like share hugs, or people don't pat each other on the back. It's more of a like, you know, like Asian parents, they don't do that. And I was thinking, okay, maybe that's something I should write about. And really, I feel like a lot of the times people don't talk about emotional challenges, but it does give a really big window to who you are as a person. And I think it really displayed my idea of empathy, because I would say that I am very empathetic towards friends, family, and just anyone who I meet. And it tends to be because I was raised in this environment where if I can't express my love physically, why not do it emotionally and in the way I talk to other people? And that's usually the first way that you start up conversations on campus, or how you begin to make friends in college. And I think that this essay alone, like being able to talk about this topic, and the reason I chose it is because it shows that when I do go to MIT, I'll be a person that's very amicable, someone that people can talk to and not be worried about.
And this was also Shamonti's question. But why did you choose to write about sensitive topics, and how did you approach them?
Well, I would say, first of all, I chose to write sensitive topics because I don't have anything unsensitive to talk about that's unique. I mean, like, sensitive topics, it's difficult, and a lot of the times it could look as if it's cliche because you're, like, trying to make the admissions officer sob, which you should not do, by the way. Don't make the admissions officer sob. I mean, if you want to. But, like, I feel that when you are approaching a sensitive topic, you need to go on this very thin... You're walking on a very thin line, and you're trying to strike a balance between falling over it or being way too safe. And if you're way too safe, you're not really talking about the sensitive topic, but you're just going around it, trying to, like, be like, oh, I experienced this, but I'm not gonna really show you that side of myself because I'm not comfortable. And those admissions officers want to see that side. But you also don't want to fall over the edge and become a person who's trauma dumping and telling the admissions officer that something horrible happened to you a long time ago, and that's why you did bad in your geometry class in freshman year. Like, that's not really what you want to do. And when you are trying to strike this balance, I find that being emotionally vulnerable is the best way to do it, because you're not talking about gruesome physical events, you're just talking about your own feelings, and you don't want to talk about it as if you're talking to a therapist, but more as a way you grew out of those feelings and how it impacts you today.
Kweller Prep provides advanced academic help for students, especially Townsend Harris High School students. We work with so many over the years. We help students get ready for applications to the best colleges in America and beyond. Kweller Prep has been servicing families for over 20 years, and many of them are Townsend Harris High School students.
And why should students join Kweller Prep?
Oh, it's an incredible community, as evidenced by our ice cream truck downstairs. Kweller Prep is a great environment where you'll make friends, you'll have fun, and you'll learn.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Admitted. You can follow us on Instagram, TJ's Classic, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel, The Classic TV. And the part 2 of this episode will cover classes, extracurricular activities, and awards, which will be coming out in a short few days. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.